Sometimes, the strongest people are not those with the loudest voices or the biggest houses, but the quiet souls who wake up each morning, put on a faded uniform, and carry the weight of the world on their tired shoulders, all for the ones they love. That's how the story of Daniel begins. Daniel was not a rich man. In fact, he had nothing that society would call valuable. He worked as a janitor in one of the city's most prestigious corporate towers. Every morning before the sun rose, he slipped into his worn-out shoes, tucked his cleaning gloves into his pocket, and left his tiny apartment with one little hand clinging to his own, his daughter, Lily. At just 6 years old, Lily was Daniel's entire world. Her mother had passed away during childbirth, leaving Daniel with the impossible task of raising a daughter alone. He was only 23 at the time, and the world told him he couldn't do it. But he did. With every floor he mopped, every trash bin he emptied, every tear he wiped from Lily's cheeks, he proved them wrong. Still, life was not easy. Rent was late. Food was stretched thin. Some nights Daniel went hungry just to make sure Lily had enough. And yet, he never let despair show in front of her. Every night he told her bedtime stories filled with heroes and castles, assuring her that one day, their struggles would lead to something beautiful. But on one particular day, the weight became too heavy. The babysitter who usually looked after Lily while Daniel worked had fallen sick. He had no family to call, no neighbors he trusted, and no money for a daycare. His shift couldn't wait, he needed those hours desperately to keep his job. So, with hesitant steps, Daniel did something he had never done before. He took Lily with him to the towering glass building where he worked. At first, Lily was shy, clinging to his leg as they walked through the grand lobby, where employees in suits tapped at their phones and rushed past without a second glance. Daniel kept whispering, "It's just for today, sweetheart. Just today." He set her up in a quiet corner with a coloring book and a few pencils, promising he'd be nearby. He tried to focus on his work, polishing the marble floors, scrubbing the glass doors, but his heart was split in two. One part of him worked, while the other part constantly glanced back at Lily, praying she felt safe. What Daniel didn't know was that someone else had noticed. From the top floor, the CEO of the company, a woman named Evelyn Carter, had been walking through the lobby with her assistant when her eyes fell on the small child sitting quietly, drawing on the floor. Evelyn was known as a woman of power, sharp, decisive, respected. Few people dared to approach her, let alone question her. But as she paused and looked at Lily, her steps slowed. "Whose child is that?" she asked softly. Her assistant shrugged. "Not sure, ma'am. Probably one of the staff." Evelyn's eyes narrowed with curiosity. And without a word, she walked toward the janitor in the corner, who was down on his knees, polishing the floor with quiet determination. "Is she your daughter?" Evelyn's voice cut through the silence. Daniel froze, his rag still in his hand. Slowly, he looked up and met the CEO's gaze. For a moment, fear gripped him. He thought of all the rules, all the warnings about bringing children to work. This could cost him his job. The very lifeline keeping a roof over Lily's head. "Yes, ma'am," he whispered, his voice tight with shame. "I'm sorry. The babysitter fell sick. I didn't have anyone else. Please. I'll keep her out of the way." Evelyn studied him, then glanced at Lily, who had looked up with big innocent eyes. The child gave her a small, timid smile before returning to her drawing. Something inside Evelyn stirred. Memories of her own childhood came rushing back, memories of growing up in poverty, of her own father who had worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table, of the quiet sacrifices that no one ever applauded. Instead of scolding him, Evelyn's expression softened. "What's her name?" "Lily," Daniel replied. Evelyn knelt down next to the girl. "That's a beautiful picture, Lily. Do you like drawing?" Lily nodded, her cheeks flushing. "Yes. Daddy says I'm an artist." Evelyn smiled. And in that moment, she made a decision that would shock everyone. The next morning, when Daniel arrived at work, heart heavy, expecting perhaps a warning or even termination, he was met with something entirely different. Evelyn herself stood in the lobby, waiting for him. "Daniel," she said gently. "From today onwards, I don't want Lily sitting in corners while you work. She deserves better. We've arranged a small space near my office, with books, crayons, and a comfortable chair. She'll stay there during your shifts, where she's safe." Daniel's mouth fell open. I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Evelyn replied. "I know what it means to struggle, Daniel. And I know what it means to be a parent who would sacrifice everything for their child." But Evelyn didn't stop there. Over the weeks that followed, she took a personal interest in Lily, encouraging her, nurturing her love for art, even enrolling her in a local school with all expenses covered. The staff, at first stunned, soon witnessed a bond forming that was unlike anything they had seen in the cold world of business. Daniel worked harder than ever, his heart swelling with gratitude. For the first time in years, he didn't feel invisible. Someone had seen him, not just as a janitor, but as a father, as a human being. Years later, Lily would go on to win awards for her paintings, her career blossoming. At every speech she gave, she would mention two people who shaped her life. Her father, who never gave up, and the woman who believed in her when no one else did. And Daniel? He never stopped cleaning floors. But now, when he walked through that grand building, he no longer felt small. He knew that love and kindness had the power to change destinies. Because sometimes, all it takes is one act of compassion to turn tears of struggle into tears of hope. This story reminds us that no matter our position in life, kindness costs nothing but can mean everything. Behind every uniform, every tired face, every parent carrying their child's dreams, there is a story of sacrifice and resilience. And sometimes, it only takes one person to notice, to care, to change everything.